June 23rd. And this day was declared by the United Nations in 2003, in order to celebrate public service, those workers of the public service, the National Army of Workers, nurses, doctors, many teachers who inspire students, midwives who have delivered many babies, many public health workers. And a quote here says, the Public Service Day is a recognition. It recognizes that democracy and successful governance are built on the foundation of a competent civil service that celebrates values and virtues of service to the community. In December 2019, actually Nigeria commissioned a national policy scoping research to generate relevant evidence on government spending, policy engagement, and campaigns on sexual reproductive health and rights in the last 4 years. The research was aimed at generating evidence to support the development of the policy change agenda on gender-responsive public service, focusing on the health sector, and that is with direct focus on sexual reproductive health and rights of women. In view of the government's commitment to health through its health policy targets versus the actual release and spending by MDAs of the budgetary allocations, the findings of this research reveal that healthcare delivery in Nigeria has been grossly underfunded by all tiers of government, placing the burden of healthcare on the shoulders of individuals and households. In the last 4 years, the federal government of Nigeria's budget for health had never crossed the line of 6%. In 2014, it was 5.63%, and then it grew to 5.78% in 2015. However, since 2016, the percentage of the budget for health has been on the decline, decreasing to as low as 3.9 in 2018. Nigeria has one of the highest out-of-pocket health expenditure in the world, currently over 75%. Other than poor funding of the health sector by government, limited supervision of healthcare providers in the private and public sector undermines government's intention of rapidly scaling up, access to quality healthcare in Nigeria, especially for women and girls. From all the indications, COVID-19 will have a dramatic impact on public health financing in a short and medium term in our country. We know that this is a tense period for the Nigerian government as it tries to secure resources desperately needed, for services in a difficult environment. The pandemic has made the rebuilding of public health finances, of finances for public health and other public services crucial and should be considered an opportunity for some fundamental system change and transformation as the government looks for structural solutions and new ways forward. The COVID-19 crisis has revealed the extent to which public services have been underfunded for a generation across Nigeria, with women in the poorest communities often having to take the strain and fill the gap through unpaid healthcare and domestic work. From the report of the Gender Responsive Public Services research conducted in northern Nigeria, some southern regions, of the country, healthcare centers were found to be suffering from a lack of care and maintenance and were grossly underfunded. Health workers in these centers were found to be underpaid and overburdened. Doctors and nurses do not get posted by the government to the communities called grassroots healthcare centers, and health extension workers who were employed by the government were untrained and ill-equipped, lacking their basic needs to transport and food. While recognizing the constraint currently facing currently being faced by the government, it is recommended that revenue from increased financial flow, for the government should be channeled to providing safety nets for women and girls, especially in the increasing gender, responsive public services. In commemoration of International Public Service Day, ActionAid International, ActionAid Nigeria, and Public Services International, PSI, here present, call on the federal government through its agencies to coordinate with other countries to suspend or, where possible, cancel all debts through to the end of 2021 and work actively to renegotiate debt servicing beyond the point so that debt servicing never exceed more than 12% of national revenue. Exceeding this level is likely to lead to cuts of public services. 2, to set ambitious targets to increase the tax to GDP ratio in a fair and progressive way by 5% over 5 years. This means that setting a plan for expanding the tax to GDP ratio from its present ratio of 6 to 15% in 2030. This would more than double the present national revenue. It would also enable you to double the present spending on essential public services, making them truly universal, of decent quality and gender responsive. And the report from Who Cares for the Future shows. 3 is to remove the present constraints on public sector wage bill, which are blocking the recruitment and decent pay of all workers, especially health workers, nurses, care work, teachers, and other essential frontline staff. As we understand it, our present agreement with the IMF current policy advice from the IMF suggests that public sector wage bill should be on a modestly increased, but achieving a national recovery from COVID-19 and setting a serious course for achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, which will require major new investment in the public sector work. We ask the government to reject any aid or loans from the World Bank and other multilateral development banks, that support privatization of public-private partnership. There is an increasing ideological agenda being attached to loans and grants, particularly pushing the privatization of public services. Government should insist that available and potential resources mobilized for COVID-19 are earmarked for public services and for rebuilding sustainable public financing. This is essential, this is critical, and this is a crisis that has made crucial the role of public services clearer than ever and must not, be used as an excuse to increase privatization. The last point is that we are committed to working together with our government, the government of Nigeria, to ensure that COVID-19 marks a turning point for our country, moving us towards a more sustainable economy and society that cares for both people and the planet. We are ready to join force with the government to ensure a revaluing of frontline public sector workers as the foundation for a more sustainable economic growth.
As you and I are aware, COVID-19 is a game changer for all of us. Earlier than now, we converge, we don't use masks, but now it's more or less compulsory that we must adorn our mask, and it's becoming the norm. And so also, COVID-19 have changed a lot of things and has even given us, insight to what is really important. You will agree with me, without the frontline actors, the nurses, the doctors, all health workers who are in the front line struggling to battle COVID-19 in the public space, we will have a different story, which may be more, worse than what we are currently experiencing in Nigeria. It has shown that the public sector, the public service alone can stand in the services of the masses in times of critical challenges, health challenges that we currently have. And as I stand, we have over 300 health workers infected with COVID-19 in line of action, in line of duty. And we have lost some of them. And it's so pathetic that while you want to give care and life, you lose your life in return. I will say that healthcare workers are not heroes. They are humans like us. What we desire, what we deserve, is for government to invest in the health sector. Abuja Declaration was signed by Nigerian government. It's an AU instrument, or I would say agreement, to invest in the health sector in Africa. And Nigeria signed it over 10 years ago to invest at least 15% of budget to achieve sustainable development goals in health. That is health that is within the reach of the masses, the health services that is, achievable, that is available and within the reach and of high quality. Today, Nigeria is spending less than 5% of the annual budget on health. And this has grossly promoted or is promoting, let me not use past tense, is promoting medical tourism among people who can pay out of pocket, who can afford. And when they go abroad on medical tourism, who do they find? Nigerians who are seeking for decent jobs and social protection in their workplaces. So all this add up to say that without government investing in health, without improvement in infrastructure for health care services, without investment in the human resource for health and recruitment of more health workers, we may not be able to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, which is barely 10 years down the line. We are using this medium to tell government there is need to invest in health. There is need to invest in education. There is need to invest in water resources. We say no to privatization of water. Every Nigerian deserves to have access to water in their homes. Women spend hours seeking water, hours that could have been used for productive efforts. We say no to privatization of water. We ask for increase in the budget for health. We ask for access to our mothers and children to reproductive health care, which is almost limited in so many ways. Nigeria still have one of the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in the world. How can we reduce this without recruitment of skilled birth attendants to man our hospitals, to provide the necessary services and care for our mothers and our children? Pregnant women die needless deaths because there are no skilled birth attendants to attend to them. We can speak a lot of grammar, but without proper action and planning, it is getting us nowhere. And I implore our government to make it a point of duty to invest in public services. Without that, sustainable development goals will be out of the reach. Before I drop this microphone, we have a project that is working with the IDPs in IDP camps in the Northeast. And the frontline actors in IDP camps are public sector workers. We need protection of IDP rights. We need protection of healthcare workers and all public services workers who are taking care of IDPs. I implore our government to ensure safety of lives of workers and of IDPs. We had a webinar last week, and the director of IDP in the National Commission for Refugee Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons was making it us to understand that the budget for this year for their planned activities have not been released. We ask government to release their budget. Nigerians don't need to die needlessly. We want protection of rights of everybody, including IDPs, because they are one of us, they are part of us, and they are citizens of Nigeria. I will drop the mic here and say thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Government has been, releasing budget or planning, doing a plan. You hear a huge amount of money as budgeted. How sensitive. The size of the budget is not enough, just like my sister just said. But then when it comes to the distribution or redistribution, you find out that even that share is not sensitive enough. It does not take into consideration those who really, really need it. Go into the healthcare facilities in all the rural areas, you find out that there's no drugs. The best government does is to construct the buildings. And why is the building even prioritized? Is because contracts are involved, people are getting money out of it. Once those contracts are done, you don't see the doctors, you don't see the drugs, and people will just go there. If they are lucky to find a chew that will tell them what to do. And so they have resorted to herbs and other means of supporting their children. Malaria is killing them. People are not getting medical services. The only health facility that we provided in Lakenturu is the savage story for children, more than 500 children who now access vaccination. So what are we talking about? If children cannot get access to vaccination, women cannot have access to even delivery suits in the communities. Malaria cannot be treated. You have typhoid, you die from it. What are we talking about? Where is the money? So the question is, create the taxes that we are paying should work for the poor and excluded. These women pay tax. Some pay through their nose because they pay multiple taxes from their communities to the markets, and from the market on the road, they are also taxed. Back home, they work continuously. There's no rest. You cannot have access to basic social services that can support your labor. Checking how many distance to go and fetch water for people to bath, to drink. And we are here talking about it today and asking government to be responsive. Because for us to have services in community, we are demanding that it should be gender responsive and it should be available within reach for women, and then that it's used, that people can adapt, it's also adaptable, that people can use it irrespective of their status, whether person with disabilities, children, women, and men.
That our programs, all activities, and especially the activity of the government, must respond to the needs of women and children. A lot has been said, but we know that whatever the situation, women and girls are always at the receiving end. They are the ones that go out of their way to make sure that we are comfortable. They are the ones that do all the care work. So valuable it is, yet it is not given the value, it's not given the attention it deserves. And at this time, more than ever before, the care work is being done by women and girls. In the lockdown, so many things happened to women and girls that we heard the story of what is happening. There's no burden, there's no strain on them to also help, even to help every other person that has been locked down at home, including schoolwork and all that. So if women and girls give so much more, and then I think it will not be out of place for government to be able to do it in such a way that women and girls are taken care of. And at this point also, the NLC want to, with a very loud voice, condemn all the issues of rape, sexual violence, gender-based violence that is happening around. Everybody deserves a safe place, and more especially for women and girls. Our homes must be safe for us. The society must be safe for us. And most importantly, the workplace must be safe for us. And that is why now more than ever, we put our voice and call strongly on the government of Nigeria to ratify Convention C-190 that talks about elimination of all forms of violence and harassment in the workplace, so that the workplace will be a safe place for everybody, a productive place, because the workplace is the engine room of governance. And if the workplace is safe, then every other thing will be safe. And we pray that the government of Nigeria will take this clarion call and ratify the convention.
COVID-19 has been an eye-opener. Judging with the percentage of persons that were able to access the services. We, the youth, have concluded that 70% of the people in Abuja, because we just used that as a case study, in Abuja here, weren't able to access basic amenities. Example, water. Water was one of the amenities needed to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but not every homes were able to access this facility. Not to mention healthcare services, electricity, and water. As young people, we're asked to stay at home. We stayed at home for the first week. You know how electricity went. But it also opened our eyes to something. The first 4 weeks of the lockdown era, we realized that it is possible to actually have constant electricity in Nigeria. We all are witness to that. So it is on this note that we are convinced as youths that it is very possible to have a gender responsive public service in Nigeria, and we make our demand, calling on duty bearers to ensure that these facilities, amenities, which are actually our rights, are put in place. It is also on this account that we have concluded that they shouldn't just see these things as doing it to feed their pockets or something. They should see it as a form of development to the country and also human capital. This is also a way of improving and developing our country.
One of the main issues that these women had is that there are no health facilities. COVID-19, like everyone has said here, has shown us, the impact of not having health facilities. We saw when some top government officials, had the COVID-19 virus, and it was difficult. They had to, run from one state to another across the country to seek for just basic healthcare needs for them to survive. So this has revealed the weakness in our health system. And for the women and girls at the grassroots, this is a daily reality for them. In some communities, no health facility at all. The women have to travel for hours. Even here in the FCT, our team went to a particular community where the bridge was broken. And for a woman who starts labor at night, she has no form of help at all. And God helps her if complications arises, she will be left to fate. So for the team to even access that community, it took hours for them to use other routes. They spent just here in the FCT, it took them like 3 hours to access that community because the bridge was broken. Then for other communities that had the healthcare facilities, like in Kwara and Bauchi, where we went, the health facilities are dilapidated. For some, when it starts raining, you can't even stand in the clinic because everywhere is leaking. There are no equipment, there are no beds. In a whole health facility, you have a mattress on the floor. So these health facilities are grossly under-equipped. And another challenge is that the women had is that they had to pay for these health services. A lot of the women at the grassroots are daily income earners. They are not working. And during this period of COVID-19, it has been worse because the lockdown has restricted them from carrying out their daily income activities. And a lot of them don't have health insurances, like those of us living in the city centers. So access to health, funding for lack of affordable healthcare services was a big issue for these women. And also bad roads. A woman who starts labor at night will have to travel for hours to a health care center in the city center, and it takes her traveling on bikes on a very bad road. So a lot of women are dying. They've lost their children. They have lost their lives. And another thing that the women at the grassroots complained about is that even the healthcare facilities, in most of the communities we went to, in fact, we did not see a qualified doctor or nurse. Most of them are community healthcare workers, and some are even cleaners that have served in healthcare facilities and have learned some of the treatments, because one of the things that the women complain is that they don't have confidence. You see an attendant giving injection and giving prescription. They don't have confidence in these people in the healthcare center. So they prefer to go to a town, and it takes a lot of money. Sometimes they spend thousands and they don't have it. They prefer to stay at home in a healthcare center where you don't have a bed. They prefer to stay at home, to be nursed at home, than going to be admitted in such a health facility. So I'm adding my voice to other comrades to ask the government. I will lay the request of the women. The women are asking for basic health care facilities to meet their sexual and reproductive health in their communities. The women are also asking for affordable and, if possible, free health services, so that they can meet their sexual and reproductive health. And lastly, they're asking for trained staff. They're asking for, and the healthcare workers also need support with favorable service conditions, so that they can go to these communities, so that they can also stay in places that they are posted to. Because in some of these communities, the healthcare workers complain that they don't have the necessary allowance to cater for their kids and other things. Even their salaries are not coming on a regular basis. So they also need the government to make commitment to ensuring that their benefits are delivered to them. So we are calling for more funding from the Ministry of Finance, where we are calling for more commitment of the government to ensuring that they make the health system a better place for women and girls.
If you take another 20% is social, the health insurance scheme. The health insurance scheme caters for about 3 to 4% of Nigerians. Those who have valid address, those who are in employment, full-time employment, right? So it means that the government is not doing enough. They're not doing so much. So it's an opportunity. And for us, I think COVID-19 has provided us an opportunity to stimulate this conversation more deeply. Even the president has not traveled out of this country to seek medical health care since COVID-19 started. So it means that it's an opportunity for us to call the attention of government so that we can start having sincere conversations around funding the healthcare system. Notable Nigerians have died. The chief of staff to the president died because of what? COVID. Because of poor health system. So it means that everybody is affected. So this is an opportunity for us to come together, and have this conversation. I'd like us to make the evidence available to every one of us, to the press, and let's go out there and keep investigating. We all were part of we all knew the corruption that bedeviled the health insurance scheme some years ago. Well, we all know how that a lot of people who are supposed to be benefiting from that scheme are not benefiting from that scheme. There's a lot of corruption going on there. So I will call on media to go there and take your lenses and take your tools there and keep investigating and keep bringing it to the fore.
What's the possibility of providing this service in the face of rising public debt? Yeah, this is just the point. We're in a country where today, the public debt profile for us is about 33 trillion naira. Yeah, this is almost 90 billion USD. What is our budget? What is our revenue? Over the last 5 years, we've been unable to meet our revenue target. Yeah? In a country like Nigeria, this is the giant of Africa, the largest economy in Africa, with about 82.9 million people living in poverty. The sense is that we need organizations like PSI, we need NLC. It's the time for us to call a national summit. Yeah, call a national summit on the emergency situation we are. Because there's no way, poverty will not continue in this kind of situation we are. Unfortunately, with the COVID, even the revenue we are getting now, everything has gone down. So we are still expecting the worst. You know, talking about education, talking about health, talking about agriculture. You know, for us, these are the three key sectors, you know, that government must invest. And studies have shown that investment in these sectors will reduce poverty, unemployment, you know, and create a buoyant society. Even the World Bank, even the IMF, the organization that we see as a neoliberal agencies, you know, these organizations are already urging government to invest in this sector. But unfortunately, imagine a country where up to 80%, you know, of the population are working on agriculture. 1.7% of the budget is devoted to agriculture. Education, where 10.3 million people are out of school. Yeah, it has less than 5%. You know, health, the same thing. So I think for us is the time, you know, for us to really take action and not just lamenting. It's time to stop lamenting. Because the way it is, we have to take the space. You know, they will not give it to us. You know, we have to move and ask for this thing. Unfortunately, year in, year out, our budget has been on the increase. Yeah, from about 5-10 years now, been on the increase. Now, last month, 10.8 trillion naira budget was passed. You know, out of this, where would the money go? I've mentioned the allocation to these key sectors. Looking at the budget, you see frivolous things where the money is going. But even the 1.7% going to agriculture, you know, where aspect of agriculture does it go? All these things goes on overhead, you know, buying jeeps and all that, building fences, buildings that nobody is occupying. Yeah, unfortunately, it cannot continue like this. So I urge PSI, NLC, and others, please let us come together and call a national summit to address this. And the attention of government, you know, must be called. You know, unfortunately, as at this month, another loan has been approved, 5.5 billion USD. To do what? Where is the money going? Yeah, nobody is seeing it. You know, but the loan keep piling. And the loan is we that will be suffering. We are the one to suffer this. Even not us, our generation, the generation coming, you know. The idea is that borrowing, nobody say we should not borrow. But if we are borrowing, there should be a framework. Where is the money going? What is it going to be used for? How long will it take us to pay back? What's the plan to pay back such loan? I'm emphasizing on this because that's the greatest challenge of governance we have today.
I think when you talk about education, we're talking of so many issues embedded, even health itself. Because if you are not able to train the doctors, nurses, midwives, the workers themselves, education is a nation's greatest investment. When we look back, all of those who are in the public service today, all the politicians, majority of the politicians were trained free of charge in Nigerian universities. They all had scholarships in Nigerian universities. The hospitals in Nigeria, the colleges of medicine in Nigeria, have trained most of the best doctors in the world. But what is the investment today? What we are having today is the looting of the economy that we're talking about. It's not only in the spending, it's in the pronouncement of the budget, but how much is released to actual spending on the social services. When we talk about the investment we talk about the World Bank or loans from the IMF, we are talking of something that some of us made a lot of sacrifices to. When IMF came to Nigeria, we had the World Bank, all the loans that Nigeria took. Many of us were students. As students, we kicked against the loans that were being taken at that time. And the fortunate thing is that, well, fortunate I would say, is that the Nigerian government did not take loans, but they collected the IMF conditionalities even against the advice of economists. in Nigeria. And what happened down the line? The structural adjustment program destroyed every social facet of the social economy. And that is what happened. Like the education, they asked government to withdraw, a subsidy or whatever they call it, whether it is subsidy. When you are investing in education of your citizens, you are preparing people who will take over your economy. You are preparing the human resources for your economy, those who are going to run the future of your economy. That was the investment that our forefathers invested in the current politicians, and many of us. Some of us, the free school feeding was withdrawn before we entered the university. But many of the politicians today, a lot of them got those scholarships. They not only got scholarships to study in Nigeria, they got scholarships to study abroad, any part of the world. Nigerians were sponsored so that they could come back and and become the workforce, the engine room for the Nigerian economy. Today, how many scholarships do we have? What is happening is that you remove the carpet from the stage that you walked in so that nobody else could walk on. And it's a tragedy in Nigeria. The tragedy of investment in the health sector is a tragedy in Nigeria. The tragedy of maternal mortality is a tragedy in Nigeria. That women and children are dying just because their country do not care for them. And that is why that you have the politicians, and I am calling again, that if you want to be a politician in this country, if you are a politician, if you are elected in this country, you should not go outside the country to seek medical care because we have enough hospitals. Equip the facilities in Nigeria. And if you are a public worker, why should you send your children abroad? It means something is wrong with your own health, with your own educational system. The public systems in Nigeria, when we were in the university, we were in the university with people from different parts of the world. Schooling in Nigeria. What happened to Nigeria? Is a time for recollection. COVID-19 is calling us to order that we are not making the right investments. If you are making the right investments, where you have some of the best doctors in the US are Nigerians, our president doesn't need to go abroad for medical checkup because we have the workforce. We are lucky today that more than 62% of Nigerians are young people, which means you have the engine room. Give people, scholarships today. We have a lot of science students. Give them scholarships, and a lot of them want to go and be engineers. They want to be doctors. They want to be nurses. Give it to them, and they work for you, and they're going to be paying taxes. So what is the kind of investment? If you remember the downturn, during the social meltdown, sometime during Obama's time, he rolled in, pumped in billions of dollars to make sure that industries are working, to make sure that schools are working, to make sure that, because at the end of the day, he said they are the taxpayers, so the money comes back. So when you invest, and when you are not investing, and I'll tell you something about the debt that my colleague mentioned. The debt issue is we are even getting moratorium. We are getting moratorium for 3 years. So the debt that, the loans that President Buhari and his team are collecting, they are not going to pay for it. They will walk away. And what are you investing the debt in? Are you investing it in a productive economy, or you are investing it into people's pocket? We will demand transparency and accountability. And we are demanding investment in education, in the health sector, in all the social sectors, in agriculture, because we have mono economy. We need to invest in a place where they will be able to invest in. When you have a place that is producing workforce for you, that is where to invest, for the population. And so the care for women, in a crime where women, when they are pregnant in Nigeria, is like they are working on the maternity death row. No woman needs to die. But I can tell you, and women, women is not just a safe place for we who are educated. If your health systems, the structures that you have in place, the system is not there, nothing will save you. I remember one of the minister's daughter, that her only child, we lost her about 3 years ago. The only child, because of maternity death row. What was she doing? She only had a baby. It's one in hundreds of thousands. in civilized countries that will die. But I can tell you, if we want to look at statistics today, even since we started this press conference, many women have died. And so you are not doing us, the government is not doing us any favor when they give the right, scholarships, and they also put the right investment. They need to invest in the workforce to take on Nigeria. Nigeria is an engine room. There is a lot of potential with the young people. We have high rate of unemployment. And even the young people, now we are in COVID-19. Many people don't have jobs. And so who is saving them? If you are sick today, where do you go to? Those who don't have money in their pockets, what that falls to is a few people who are working are paying the debts for their brothers and sisters. We are the keepers. We may not be angry enough. And that's why we say we are ready to collaborate. But looting will not be tolerated again. And we will continue to work with all forces that everybody that is taking money will be held accountable. And so research is something that we encourage, but we are calling on the Nigerian government to provide for women and children, to provide for women and girls, to provide for the people of Nigeria. It's not a crime to be in Nigeria. We believe in Nigeria. And they say, arise, O compatriot. So we are telling every government worker who took the pledge, who swore the oath, we are calling on them to arise for Nigeria, to pledge to Nigeria, our beloved country, that we will not get out of here. If you have looted, you need to stay in this Nigeria.
That we pay. The market women pay piles of taxes. The workers in the public service, in the public sector, pay taxes heavily. Even in the private sector, even the unemployed, one way or the other, pay taxes. What about the VAT that we pay on everything we buy? So we want our tax to fund our public services. We don't want tax havens to be encouraged among the multinationals in Nigeria who work in Nigeria, make money in Nigeria, and siphon the money back to their countries. We want that transparency in tax governance. We want tax justice. And we want reduction in the cost of governance. Such money can be used to improve the public services.